jacket, long brown hair, mustache, no goatee or nothing, and walking towards me, looks me right in the eye, and I almost froze. I kind of froze, and then I'm going back to trying to get the camera working, and he walks past me, and I get the camera working, and I turn around, and he's gone. Now, I'm on a major kind of road. There's only one or two directions he could have turned in, and I'm on a bike that's at 10 speed that I could make pretty good time with. I went all over trying to get a shot of this guy. Just vanished on him. And he was identical to the pictures, because I found footage online of Richard during the trial and prior to the trial. It was a spitting image of him. He could have been his stunt double. And it was right in front of the facility. And this is the facility where I have footage of the people who worked there saying that they called him Renfield because he would capture animals and birds and kill them and drink their blood while he was staying there. So it's creepy stuff. He was definitely a sick, twisted individual. He never, outside of him leaving for Los Angeles, he never really left that. It was like an 18-mile circle between that and the golf course over there off of Watt Avenue, which he would cut across at night and try to hunt animals. And some of his victims' houses are over there too. Like Paul was saying, the only reason he went into some people's houses is because the door was unlocked. There was one person who was almost killed, and the reason they weren't is because their door was locked. They were inside the house as he was fiddling with their door trying to get in, and their door was locked, so he didn't get in. And that's what they told the police. There was also a woman who went to high school with him, who ran into him at the shopping center. You know where the Trader Joe's is by the right down the street there, from that golf course. Yeah. She bumped into him at the Trader Joe's parking lot, and he asked her for a ride, and he looked filthy and just disheveled, and she could tell something was wrong. She smartly said no, and it probably saved her life.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, too, the house where I was talking about who he defecated at. When we did our investigation in there, the house is abandoned. No one wants to buy that house, and we're taking pictures through the window, and we kept on getting strange, misty pictures. And then I would go to this other house, which was also too empty, and took pictures, and everything was normal. We went back to that house again, and still we got these misty photographs, like the mist was inside the living room. It was kind of weird.
There were, by the time you must have went there before. I think I did my investigation before I was doing it. I went over there with David Kolchak, and by the time we went around, there were people in those places. They may have just been renters, but all of the places were filled up by then. I have a feeling that the city may have actually changed the addresses, because of those crimes, and I managed to track down the real locations of each place.
Huh.
And they were all occupied, but the addresses were off by like one number. But I could tell by the photographs of the crime scenes which house was actually which.
Wow, because when they did the documentary, which is called Interview with a Serial Killer, they actually filmed right at that abandoned house, and the address where this house was in that Richard Trenton Chase book.
Do you happen to remember if that was right behind a store, at a dead end of a street, and then there was a kind of a gate, and then on the other side was the back end of a shopping center?
I remember other houses around it, and then I remember the half wall, because supposedly he was behind the half wall defecating.
There was I also went to the place where they found the little boy's head in the box, which is a church.
And the garbage bin.
The dumpster, right?
Yeah. We went to the garbage bin.
Yeah, they've since put a gate up around that. I went there before the gate was up and then after the gate was up. That was also right off of Watt Avenue, I think.
We've got so much more with Phil and Paul and the Paranormal Soul Brother with Gene and Tim. It's a mouthful. You're in.
The Paracast.
Basically, our trio of guests here, I guess they're running the show themselves because they talk between each other and they seem to take us to different places. So let's go on. Guys, you want to pick up?
Hey, I want to tell you about Charles Nick and Leonard Lake. We did an investigation at Wilseyville, California. That's where they had their cabin at. That's where they would bring the women. They had something like I think it was like 30 videotapes of these women that they took hostage, and they did whatever. I'm not going to say it because we're on radio, but just did horrible, horrible deeds to them in that cabin. That cabin was torn down, and we had a psychic with us, and the psychic was the secretary of Sylvia Brown. I think you guys all know who Sylvia Brown was, right? Yeah, well, Holly DeLauder, that was her name. She was a very good psychic. She actually, we didn't know where we were going in Wilseyville. It's a small place, but she knew exactly where the cabin was located at, where it was torn down at. And then I talked to some of the locals, and they said, yeah, that's where the cabin was. And then she said, Paul, I want you to go ahead and take a picture of that tree over there. She goes, one of the victims is standing there. I take a photograph, and I get a shape of the mist is in a human shape. And I said, whoa. And then we got this EVP, and it sounded like a woman whimpering. That was one of the best places of where two serial killers had this cabin, and we picked up all types of evidence. And those guys were just horrible.
Well, that energy, that's Tim, I think before was talking about energy being at a place.
Oh yeah, residual energy. Yes.
But also, we did also mention, the demons, the illnesses like ontascalis, or whatever, an Alu demon or Utuku demon, and what I explain about that is, people always, they talk about mental illness, but in earlier times, they would have associated illnesses that they would assign to demons. And say, like in the Mesopotamian times, Babylonian times, you would have a daemon around to help counter or hurt. And so, like now that we're in modern times, there was a couple of books, Jonathan Nave and Charles State, who wrote Amulet Bowls and Magic and Aramaic Incantations. And when you read the stuff they do, you see how they, instead of, like, say, a serial killer back in the day, they would take that person in a room and say an incantation around him, say the angel Uziel, they would say Suniel, Haniel, and Raphael are surrounding you, and you're in the presence of God. And then they would bind him to an oath. And if that didn't work, they would try different things, like they would have people that had, say, syphilis, take the spit out of their mouth, put it on that person. Like they really believed this, and they had incantations assigned to illnesses like doctors. So whether we think it's mental or whether we think it's spiritual, it's always been associated with the dark. And then when I specified demons, the reason why I said that, because